Alright guys, today on the stream we're going to start weathering this. This is my Shore Trooper blaster rifle. This model was by a guy named Sean Fields. He modeled this rifle and the entire costume. And so he put all those files out for free, and I've been printing the pieces. And this is the first one that I wanted to do this, to fully 3D print it, finish it, to see how much work it would be to take someone else's files. And it actually went together really easily. This was 43 pieces, I think. It's got some PVC down the center of it to lock everything together. Like that's PVC right there. You can see kind of in these sections, you can see the PVC is underneath there. And that's what gives it its structure. Everything else is just glued on and screwed on. There's some actual hex head screws in here that hold these pieces together and just give it the look that it should have. And so basically today we're just going to start weathering this to get it ready for moving on to the full costume. I'm printing the pieces of the rest of the costume right now, and it takes a really long time. There's a whole lot to the costume. So we're going to start with the gun, and then in the future we'll do some videos about the costume. But this is got several layers of filling primer on it. And so I would put a layer of that down, sand, another layer, sand, until you get to where you can't really see many of the build lines. There's a few places where you can see them. I'm just not too worried about it because there's so much surface area. I got it pretty good. So after that, I laid down a coat of silver to give it like a metal finish. Then I put a couple of coats of black satin enamel to seal that down, make a hard finish. And then on top of that, I put a couple layers of matte black. So it has kind of a flat look to it right now. And as we start scuffing it away, we're going to get to different levels of sheen and eventually down to silver. So we're going to start by sanding and knocking off edges and stuff. And then whatever highlights we don't get from that, we'll go back and paint on with silver or with combinations of silver and black or something. We'll get to that. But so basically this is what we're doing today. Lots of people are asking for videos, so I figured I'd make this stream available on YouTube so you guys can check it out. Oh, thanks for the subscription. I appreciate that. I'm gonna get I've got some cut sheets of 220 already, and I'm gonna cut a sheet of 150. Start the sanding. I've got some of this flexible sandpaper. I like this stuff a lot. It's 150 grit, and then I've also got some 220 grit, and these are good for just kind of light finish sanding. And then I took one piece of that and wrapped it with some spray adhesive around a piece of wood so I have a flat surface. I can get some small edges. And I don't know that I'll use this as much today because I really want to wear this, but these are basically what I'm using. So just to kind of get started, I'm going to start with the lighter grit, the 220, the higher grit, so it doesn't do as much damage. And I really don't know how it's going to take off the paint because I have 4 or 5 layers of paint. And so I'm just going to experiment on a part that's not going to be super obvious. And that'll tell me how much I'm going to have to sand down to actually get the look that I want. So I'll start down here on the bottom section with these kind of, I guess they're like heat sinks. I don't know. I think it's actually going to take quite a bit to get through all of this paint. Well, I was wrong about that, though. That got right down to the silver right there, just knocking it off, so. Be kind of rough, as if this was getting set down and hit on a bunch of stuff. And you can kind of see, as it gets down there, this is the silver color right here, which is good. That looks like it actually got through to, I guess that's silver as well. It looks brighter, but that's going to give us a good look because it's actually taking off the paint to show what's underneath, which is what would happen in real life. We're not necessarily just painting silver over top of it. So I'm going to use this kind of hard surface to kind of nick all of these, and then these screws are actual screws that are put in there. So if I take the paint off of those, they're going to show through to their original silver color. I mean, they have primer on them as well, so I'll have to get through the primer, but... So I guess what I'm going to do is just kind of run over this entire thing with the small grit stuff, and then go back and really, you know, take out sections like this to get more detail in there. I'm doing the real kind of basic over the entire thing, and then I'll think about how someone would use this and where the actual wear spots would be. Because I think, you know, you can easily just like go through it all, but then like, why would that spot right there get worn in real life? You know, it doesn't sit on anything. Your hand doesn't necessarily go there. I don't know. So you got to do a general pass and then go back for the actual realism. Thanks, Kentucky Jeep guy. Definitely want to try to hit all of these sharp corners, anything that would be exposed, that would be catching on, you know, a vehicle or on the, you know, any kind of clothing or other metal or something. If somebody drops their gun, if it runs into their armor, those are the things that are going to get nicked and exposed first. High spots. And then there's something to be said. I don't know enough about guns to know exactly how this would work, but different parts of this would heat up at different amounts based on how the gun was used. So over time, the paint may chip off in different ways in the barrel sections that are specifically hot. And all of these heat sinks things, I would imagine over time would have a different amount of wear than like the butt of the gun or the handle of the gun. And there may be the case where I break into past the silver down into the primer again, or even down to the 3D print if I go too deep with the sanding. And in those cases, I'll just have to come back and touch up some of the black. But and getting it worn down is really just the first step of the weathering. And after that, then we'll have to go back and add dirt and stuff as if it were, these guys are beach troopers, so it will have spent some time near water, near sand. So the surfaces probably have to have been repainted several times. They're going to get dinged and scratched. There might be some corrosion. Like in this, like the magazine would come in and out a whole bunch of times. So around this opening, it's going to get chipped off. So that's the type of thing that, you can think about like a real world application. That's how it would happen. And so you just weather accordingly to fake that. It's kind of, it's funny because my work surface here has a bunch of other white stuff on it that's getting on here, and it looks like chip away, but it's actually like stuff that's on it that shouldn't be there. So also just running over all the surface, you know, even though it's already matte, running over everything with a high grit paper just will soften the finish and make it a little more uneven, which is what would happen over time. There's even some places down here, which I'm not sure if you can see on camera, but where the paint dripped on some underlayer a little bit, so it's uneven. But it actually looks pretty cool because it looks like it's been repainted kind of hastily. So, you know, which would happen, I think. These things, the armors and the guns and stuff would get repainted after they got to a point. The Empire would be all about keeping things kind of, you know, up to a standard. Thanks for the cheers. Yeah, they would get shinier. The handle and the stock would almost have like a burnishing on them, probably, because they would be rubbed against clothing or, you know, gloves, skin more often, and so they would probably end up being a little bit shinier. So like the trigger would get a lot of wear, and so that's what I'm doing now. So the primer that's on top of the screws, actually you have to go through that. If not, you don't get the silver, you just get a flat gray primer, which doesn't have the same effect. So you get that kind of look. Now the bad thing about that is that the bad thing about that is that they really stand out against the, you know, the black. So I don't want to overdo it by exposing too many of those, but they do need to be somewhat exposed on top because they would catch a lot of wear. This thing really chips it off nicely on the edges. It has some good chip markings. Don't want to use the 150 paper, leaves quite a few scratch marks rather than a more general sanding kind of, you know. The 220 seems to work best on the paint. It's starting to look pretty good, actually. I haven't gotten to all the different sections yet, but it's looking better. Yeah, starting to look good. For some reason, the paint that I used, the matte, I guess it was maybe at the beginning of the spray or something. This one little section right here has had a gloss to it. You can kind of see the shimmer there. And I'm not sure why that did that, but can get rid of it now. All right, what else do we need here? See if we can get you guys a little different perspective here. This right here is a 3D. This entire thing's 3D printed, but this part right here is modeled after an actual flashlight that you can buy commercially. I just didn't track it down, but you can, if I ever want to, I can pop off this little piece right here. I can take that off and replace this with the actual flashlight, and it'll drop right in, and then I can turn it on and off if I decide I want to. Hey, Corey. Good to see you. Sorry I haven't been looking at the chat much, but I will. You do have to be careful with the stuff on the board, because if you push down too much, it will take off chunks like that, like a nick, which in some cases is what you want, but if you do it in the wrong place, it's going to look kind of too much, you know. Hey, Geeksmithing! I don't want to overdo this part of it, because it'd be really easy to overdo it. It's looking pretty good, I think. Need probably some more taken off of this outer heatsink area right there, I think. And then also on the very tip here where there would be a lot of heat right there. There we go. Look at that. It's hard to see, like looking at the screen, it's not obvious maybe how much, to you guys, how much is different about it. It still looks pretty black. But there's quite a few different textures now. So there's stuff where it looks like it used to be glossy around the details here. And so, you know, the high spots and then the big... Oh, thanks, Brom Gaming. We are doing fine. Thank you for that. 10 months in a row. That's awesome. Awesome, awesome. So spots like this where there's still a little bit of sheen around them that would have, you know, kind of been protected by the high spot. But then these lower flat sections are more of a matte sanded finish. There's a little more sheen down inside these grooves because it wouldn't have gotten affected, stuff like that. So there's a pretty good variation right now. Like I said, I don't want to take it too far, but I do think that's looking pretty good. Anybody have anything, see anything? Let's look at it on the big camera. So give me some feedback. The trigger and the handle would be really worn, yeah. I knocked the trigger. You can kind of see the trigger there. It's got like some silver to it, like it's worn from this area. The handle, I haven't. That would be a good do, like some right on the sides here, maybe. Maybe this surface, because you're doing like that. But let's see what else we got here. So a lot of these highlights on this, these pieces. It's kind of hard to tell what's like highlight from the light and what's highlight from the paint, but as I spin it, you can kind of see. And then up here, there's quite a bit on this front top section. And then back here on that. So, weathering on the butt where you've smacked people, good idea. Chips from hitting like helmets and stuff. Did you do the top of the barrel? Yeah. There's like some highlights there. I didn't want to overdo these pieces because I'm not really sure, you know, how much wear they would take or how they would be affected. Some nicks where the magazine goes in. I did that. So on this edge right here, that's where the magazine slides in. And so I weathered that, or like silverized it on the top and the bottom. So it's got some nicks. The bottom of the magazine's not really done though. Maybe there we go. Yeah. So the magazine looks a little bit better now. And I put some more on the tops of these things, whatever those are supposed to be. Putting the silver layer underneath this is key, I think. It's the first time I've ever done that, but you know, it lets you get back to the material rather than adding on the paint on top of it. I know that there's some like big time props out there that their version of weathering on these mass production props, their version of weathering is taking black Sharpie and going on top of the paint as if it were to look like you got through the paint to a black material. And it just doesn't look right because you don't get the variation of like, you know, like in a nick, you have a deep part and then less deep parts, and it eventually gets up shallow enough to where you're back to the paint. And when you put Sharpie on top of that, you don't get that like gradation. So, what do you think? Maybe some more back here? I haven't really done much on this back side. But I think it's looking pretty good. It's got a nice sheen to it. Pretty happy with it. Pew pew! All right, so let me do a little bit more here on the back side, on the butt. And there's like this little crevice in between these two pieces that these edges weren't cut at all, but they add a nice detail to it. If I can cut off the edge. Oh yeah, there we go. And then I did a little bit of like a big section as if it were really worn there from being on, you know, like that would contact with the armor. Probably this back here would too, but I don't want to overdo that. Because actually I got through the silver to the primer there, so I'll probably have to go back and touch that up a little bit. Maybe it was too much, but added a lot of stuff around this edge, all the way around to these detail pieces, knocked those down, and then more to the back side. So I think that's pretty good for that. I don't want to do too much more. Let me just look over it and see if there's any real high spots. There's always some. Cool. All right, so I think we're going to stop there with the sanding portion of it and see if I can get a little bit more light. I don't know if that's going to... So I'm going to stop right there with the sanding portion and then now move on to the dirtying portion. All right, so we need... Let me switch cameras here and find the colors that I want. Did somebody say something about bluish or a blue on the heat sinks? Is that what I saw? Because that would be something interesting to do. Just like a blue wash over... I guess what I would need to know from you guys, though, from you who have shotguns, if that's the case, what parts would actually get that from the heat? Just this, or would all of these get it as well? I mean, I know it's not a real gun, and I know these aren't real things, but, you know, would it just be the tip, or would it be the entire barrel, or would it be, you know, just the top, or just the bottom, or something like that? Let me know. The hot parts get a deep blue color. Yeah, I have some scratches on the scope up there. So, what are we thinking? Just like on the front, on this kind of outside thing? Just the tip, usually. Okay. It's unlikely the heat sinks would, I reckon, the areas under the sinks. Okay, gotcha. So just I'm going to do a really subtle bit on both of these pieces. And I'm going to do a wash. So you probably won't even see it. But I'm going to give it a shot, because I can always paint over it with black, you know, and like redo. So let me go get some water. I'll be right back. I'm going to do a little bit of a bluing effect here on the end where this would heat up a little bit, and I don't want to overdo it. I don't want it to be obvious. So I'm going to just do a wash. So I got a cup of water here. Just going to do a very little bit of blue, making sure this is the darkest blue I have. Yeah, just a little bit. I don't want much. You may not even be able to see this when it's done. That's kind of the hope. But just want something so that in case you happen to look at it. All right, we'll try it with less water. And still don't want very much because I don't want to overdo it, but should still be pretty much a wash here. Over the black, you're probably not even going to see the blue, but you might see it over the silver, and like down in some of the highlighted areas. So that could be kind of cool. And then if I need to knock off some more paint to expose some more silver to give the blue another place to live, then I can. Okay. So I'll let that sit on there for a minute, and I don't want to wipe it off the silver because you can kind of see it in the silver areas. I don't know that you can see it on camera, but right in there. It's really subtle, but I think it's pretty cool. It's running off pretty easily, so I want to make sure that I'm keeping it on those silver sections so that it dries there. All right. I'm just going to dab the extra and drain the extra. You can kind of see it. Not super well. The wash may be a little bit too thin to be grabbing, I'm not sure. But either way, we'll leave it like that and move on. So for the other ones, the other colors, I'm going to do a mixture of, I've got some burnt umber, burnt sienna, yellow. I'm out of green. All I have is like crazy emerald green, which is probably not a good idea. So we're going to kind of stick with these. And this is freezer paper, so it's kind of waxed on one side. So it works as like a palette paper. I'm going to make a couple of little mixtures here. I'm going to do just the brown by itself. And then the brown and yellow. And then the brown and burnt sienna. And just kind of see what they turn out, how they turn out. I'm going to leave the blue on there too, just to make it even more gross. Because it's supposed to be gross. And that'll make this yellow actually a little bit greener too, which is probably good. Okay, so they're pretty similar. And on camera they probably looked identical, but this is definitely more brown. It's a little bit lighter, and this one's far more red, almost orangey. So that'll work pretty well. Let's see if I can get a better view for you there. And so I don't want to put on too much of this either. I mean, the whole weathering thing is all about being subtle. So I want to get some more water. Get rid of my blue here. Put in some clean water. And I'm just going to use this water as a dip So as I put this paint on, I'll just dip it in the water to make it more watery. I'm not trying to mix it around in there. I'm trying to get water on the outside of the brush. So then when I go to do this, it's surrounded. It's not just pure paint. It's surrounded by water. Hey, thanks, Kentucky Jeep guy. I'm kind of hit this section at one at a time here. So then I go back with the darker, and now my brush is starting to get really wet, so it's gonna spread a lot more. Try to get in there in between these little fins, because that's the stuff that's not going to come out as easily. It would not get wiped off by the Imperial Custodial crew. Or I don't know, maybe the troopers are in charge of cleaning their own guns. No idea. Alright, so then, as you go back and you start wiping away, you should see a lot less of this stuff. I'm going to get rid of, 95% of what you put on. Like, really, you want to try to get rid of as much as possible, like the person who was cleaning the weapon would try to get rid of as much as possible, but what you can't get is what would have stayed. So that stuff is definitely very red-brown. So not my favorite color there, but I don't know. Can you even see any of that? I'm not sure that it's really showing up on camera, but there's quite a bit down in these sections. and probably a little more than I want, so just taking a wet paper towel in there. We'll get rid of some of it. Okay, so that's pretty good. I think for the next one though, I'm definitely going to do more of a wash and less of a paint. So let's mix some paint into here, into the water, and just wash a little more. This just looks more like dirty water, so that's what they would run into at the beach, I suppose. Not watery paint. They would go into dirty water. Okay, just really going after it. No reason to use clean paper towels, right? Because you don't need to really clean it off. Yeah, that's definitely a lot more natural. So the thinner it is, this makes sense now that I think about it, the thinner it is, the further down in little tiny cracks it's going to get. Like right, I don't know if you can see that little highlighted line down there. That's where it's like down in between panels. There's no way I could get that out, which is good. That's what would happen, right? So yeah, I guess thinner is the key there. So that looks pretty good. Let's move on to getting the handle dirty, getting down in these little details. So once we get done with this, I want to show you guys some of the armor that I'm printing for the rest of the costume. I've gotten several pieces printed, completely printed, and so I want to start kind of piecing some of it together. And it's not sanded or any of that stuff yet, but I want to make sure I can get it to fit and, get it on and off before I spend the time with any of the finishing work. Time for a new paper towel. That one's leaving little fibers everywhere. After this dries, or all the liquid dries, hey, thanks. Appreciate that. After this dries, I'll go back and get rid of all of the you know, like dust it off and everything. You get rid of all the stuff on the surface before adding like a clear coat. Because I can see like sawdust and hair and plaster and all these different things I have on my bench are all now attached to this. So, all right, so we're about back to the butt here. Everything else is pretty well dirtied. I've kind of watered down all the paint that's on my little palette board here, so I'm just adding some more of the dark brown to my water. Really get that wash in there. Thanks, Jeep guy. Bombs away. Do you think there is an optimal order of operation? I don't think so. I mean, so the way I was thinking about it on this one was to imagine that this thing was cleaned all the time. And if that's the case, then the first thing that would happen for wear would be like paint scuffing. Imagine it was painted multiple times. Then you would have different layers of paint that you would get worn through over time. Some parts would end up being thicker than others and stuff like that. So that's why I went with painting multiple base layers on, scuffing them down to get the wear. Then imagine someone fell into the swamp when they were on patrol and it just happened to get really dirty and they hadn't cleaned it off yet. That's kind of what I'm going for now. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it. Everybody has different processes. And then people have different ways of doing each of those things as well, you know. I could paint on these little silver scuffs instead of doing a base layer of silver, and it would just, you know, would have looked different. Not necessarily better or worse, but different. So right here, there's a little knot that is where you attach the strap. So it's here, and maybe, I'm not really sure where the other half of it goes. Maybe here, I don't remember exactly. Oh no, it's on this plate or on the front plate. It's one of these two, I don't remember. And so I have the netting and I have the buckles, but I haven't constructed those yet to go on. So we'll do that in another stream. I don't know, guys. I think that's looking pretty good. Definitely looks dirty. And the clear coat, whenever I clear this, will... So the black right now, because it's sanded and very matte, it looks like in some of these spots, you know, it's like not black. It's like a really dark gray almost. And any kind of clear coat I put on that will give it a little bit of a, you know, like when you put water on something like that, on a sanded surface, it gets a little bit darker and then it dries. So that'll be something that'll probably change the look of it in the end. But I think we're about done. Oh, still some down here that didn't get rubbed off. Oh yeah, the rubber cement thing is a really good idea. I saw Bill do that. You paint on rubber cement, and then you paint over it, and then when you go back and rub off the rubber cement, it takes the paint on top of it with it, and it looks like chip marks, you know. It's pretty cool. I haven't tried that yet, but I've seen him do it a couple of times. Bill is the king of making space guns, and painting them and weathering them and all that stuff. Cool. I think, yeah, well, I keep thinking I'm done, but then I see stuff like dripping all over the place. You know what I may end up doing is going back and getting a like a water bottle, spray bottle with nothing in it, and just like lightly spraying down the surface and wiping it off to get rid of as much as possible. So just really leave it down in the grooves and stuff. but it's actually looking pretty good. Let's see if any of the blue survived. There's a little bit of blue tint down here on the silver. I don't know if you guys can even see that. Let me pull up to the other camera. That actually looks really cool. It's really subtle. Well, you can see it in there more than you should be able to. Let me get rid of that. That was a good call. Whoever mentioned that, I don't remember who it was, but you see the really slight blueness to those silver pieces? Kind of comes through in the camera, but here it's just like a, just a hint. Good call. So here's where we're at. To the camera, it probably looks mostly black, but here there's quite a bit of texture, there's quite a bit of color, lots of silver chip through, and there'll still be some stuff I'll probably have to take off with a wet paper towel after it dries. If I see there's any areas where it's pooled up and it's too much, I'll go back and take it off. But, there's a lot of like brown in the screw holes and in the different areas, like around these fins. There's quite a bit that's down in there, which may or may not lighten up as it dries. I'm not sure. It also looks a little rusty, which I don't know if that would happen with these guns or not, but certainly possible. They are like beach troopers, Baywatch troopers. Cool. I think we're done. I think I'm going to stop there. But that is the rifle. If I didn't have a black shirt on, you would be able to see it even better. How about that? Pretty happy with it. I like it. So that or that, depending on who you are. So that's really cool. I'm still got to put clear coat on it. After I get it completely finished, I'll put clear on it, and then I'm going to make some really small little mounts so I can mount it on the wall above my desk. I think it'd be cool to mount that because it's the first prop gun I've made from scratch. So, yeah. So that's that. Very happy with it. I'll put this guy over here. I'll take some pictures of it and post some pictures later and stuff. So, some of the other parts to the costume that I have, let me show you what I got. All right. So, in starting to think about doing this costume, I've never built a costume before. I've never tracked down all the parts. I've never done that whole thing. It's like a thing. And so, I've started gathering... Let me clean all this up. The different pieces that I need for it, and in having to do that, I've had to research and find suppliers and groups of people that do this and share resources and stuff, which is really amazing. The fact that there are entire groups of people who share resources about a single costume, and they, help each other find the parts they need and stuff. So I found this. There's a website called Imperial Boots. Pretty crazy. All they do is sell boots and soft goods for Imperial costumes. I don't know, they may have Rebel stuff too, but and it's just people. It's a group of people that do it as a side job, and so they only they take orders for like 2 weeks, and then they don't take them for a month while they fulfill those orders. So it's all like kind of after hours work. So I had to wait till the sale was open. Then I ordered, they have a Shore Trooper kit. This is amazing to me that I just ordered this kit and it's what I need. So it's the screen accurate gloves, and they have a Velcro pad on the back already. In this 3D printed hand plate, once it gets finished and gets Velcro on the back, it will stick right there. And it'll be like the beach color, the sand color. But so gloves are made with that patch on there just to stick that thing on the back. Pretty cool. So, got the pair of gloves. Got the pants that I haven't even opened yet. I've had this for a couple of weeks, but silly wide Oompa Loompa pants, which I hope are the right. They look too long to me. May have to get my wife to like take them in. But yeah, they're made to match like the look of the. They have like these wide sides, which I don't know why you have those. They have like straps in the back, straps around to go around the bottom of your foot to hold them down and stuff. And they're like a canvas material. I guess these are made just for the costume. I don't know, honestly. But, so I got the gloves, got those pants, and it came with the boots. And these are like the same boots that they use on screen. So I have to weather the boots as well. So we might actually start on this. And that's really just about scuffing them up, making them look like they've been in water. So, I thought it was pretty cool though, that like this company sells a combo for a certain character, and you just go and say like, I want that combo with this size shoes, this size pants. Obviously I got the wrong size pants, and this size gloves, and there you go. There's another company, actually the same company, a different sale cycle. They're going to be custom making the shirts that match. It's like a certain type of material up here, and then a certain type right here, and a certain type right here, whatever. And so they're custom making them for costumes, and so you can pre-order those. So it's pretty cool because that's like, I think that's most of the soft goods that I'll need. And this company is just built around producing soft goods for costumes. I don't know why that's hard for me to believe, but it is. So, got the soft goods, which is pretty cool. I've started 3D printing. I have the arms and one leg printed. This is a huge amount of printing. Huge amount of printing. So, this is a forearm piece. Again, these models are all from a guy named Sean Fields. He modeled the entire costume and gives his model away for free. So this is unfinished, straight off the printer. But this is the forearm piece that goes right there. And once I have I only got one boot. yeah, you have to buy them one at a time. So you have to scale these to fit you, and that's been a lot of the trial and error of like printing out a piece or part of a piece and seeing if it fits, and then changing the scale and printing again, stuff like that. So it's been kind of tedious in that manner. This is, I think, a 90% scale print to be able to fit on my arm, and it still like is a little loose. It slides back and forth, but if I went any smaller, I wouldn't be able to get my hand through. So, I'm trying to kind of go back and forth about like, how do I scale? At what point does it look too short? Or so it's a lot of like going against reference image, trying to figure out the scale that it needs to be to my arm, and also fitting and everything. So this was a 24-hour print. Just to give you an idea of like how much time has gone into printing. How do you keep it from rotating? I think most of these people, once I get the shirt, I'll put a piece of Velcro, just a little tab on there, and then put a matching piece of Velcro on the inside, and then when I get it, I'll slide it on and kind of lock it into place, and it'll stop. Plus there's going to be like the thickness of the material around will kind of help stop it, but I think Velcro will be probably the way that I'll do most of this. So this is like with no finishing, so you can kind of see the top edge of there's pretty rough because this was made in this configuration. I'm actually not sure why the bottom wasn't completely flat, but it wasn't. So that's that one. I've got both of these, 85%. I've also been, another trick if you're printing out a costume like this, thanks DLC Props, I've been writing the part name and the scale percentage on the side of them, which I didn't do for this one, I need to, but that way I can go back, if I decide that this one doesn't fit and I need to go back and reprint it, I can look at that and say, oh, it was 85, the next one should be different. So how tall I am, I'm 5'10", so not tall, but So I've got both of these arm pieces printed. So this one I probably can't get on because of my watch, but gauntlets. 24 hours a piece. I've got both of these bicep pieces, which go here. Again, black shirt doesn't really help. These are at 0.1 millimeter layer height, so it's a good quality. It's a good finish. You can still see the build lines, but you know they're easily sanded down. So this one, it's like that basically, and you can see their shirt, elbow, and stuff in between. And then this piece has a little notch. Kind of see that notch there with the highlight. And I'm not sure, but I think that notch, it goes all the way through, is made to attach the shoulder bell, which is something that I need to assemble, and so I thought we would do that. So these pieces are the shoulder bell pieces. These are scaled to 90%. Oh, these are the same piece. Hemisphere B and hemisphere A. So these are scaled to that, and then they printed a little weird. Then there's this strip, and the strip goes over that seam and holds them together. So we'll just glue this together. But here's the thing. So these printed in this configuration, and I laid them on the bed like that so that the angle wasn't too steep in any particular place, and so it could print without having support material up here. Okay, so there's support down here on the bottom, but it basically printed up like this for the rest of it, which is really cool. Saves time. The bad thing about that is because it's kind of freestanding and getting smaller, is there's a layer shift here. There's some heat change over time, and so whereas this edge should match perfectly with its mating edge on the other side, because of the heat change, they don't quite meet. See that? So this is not a huge problem, but it is something that has to be dealt with. And so I think the way that I'm going to do it is just to get a heat gun and heat both of these pieces up and fit them into this center strip. It's got a channel. So I think we're just going to try to get these to fit. It shouldn't take too much. But they definitely will not fit in there. There's just too big of a gap in the middle. They need to be... I think what I'm going to do is heat the top, heat this section, and just try to bend it out a little bit to try to get this line in more of a straight line. So that's what we're going to try to do first. And if we can get that one assembled, then we can do the other one. And so on the back side of this, there's nothing on the inside here, right? But this overlaps this bicep piece, well, like this, okay? So somewhere under here, this thing has to attach to that little hook. And I don't know how people have done that yet. I haven't looked into it, but I think there's, going to be some sort of a strap in there that holds them together, and then this one's velcroed to the shoulder. I don't know. Because I'm figuring all this stuff out as we go. But anyway, right now we're going to work on trying to get this thing seamed up correctly. And just hope that it fits. I don't really know that these are the right sizes. I kind of measured as best as I could from without actually having it there, like measured what my shoulder would be. So I don't know. Hopefully it'll fit. And I don't know the best way to heat this. That actually looks pretty flat. I wonder if one of these is way off. So this one this one actually looks like, if I lay it against the table here, this entire seam is touching that. So when I line up, it fits in there pretty well. Not perfectly, but pretty well, which means this one's the problem. So when I lay this one against the table, it's got a high point down here in the corner and a high point right there. And a kind of low point, or the other way around, up here in the top. So I don't know, I guess we'll just kind of play with heating the entire thing and forming it to where all the sides hit the bottom there. I don't know. I also have to clean off this piece a little bit, just because I haven't really, like, there's still some support material on these pieces and on the edges and stuff. This one looks pretty clean on the inside though, so let me get a knife and trim off. So this edge right here was against the build platform, like that, and so it's got a little extra material. That will get in the way because it'll stop these bells from being able to sit against the surface. So yeah, there we go. And then these might have some things kind of like that as well. So what I'm doing for attaching most of these pieces is just using super glue. And that works to hold them together, but in the long term, it probably won't hold up super well. So the idea, some people will back them with fiberglass, you know, once they get them assembled. I think I'll probably go back with some 5-minute epoxy. Like after I get this here and fit together with super glue in place, I'll go back with some 5-minute epoxy and just run it down this bead to lock all the pieces there. I'm not going to be like trooping a ton in these costumes, so it's not like I'm not that worried about them coming apart. So let's see, that's the one that needed. Yeah, this is the one that needed the most work. All right. If we get them hot enough, I mean, they should kind of form. We don't have to get them that hot, but they should kind of all be able to form together. But so we'll start out with this one. This is the one that's the most off, and try to get it flattened. I mean, this plastic will melt pretty easily, so you can get it too hot pretty quickly. It's also really hot on your thumb if you're holding your hand near it. I can feel it flexing already. So it really might not take very much to get these. It's pretty flat. And it's bubbling a bit. So I got it. I heated it too quickly, probably. Yeah, I did. Yeah, that's kind of a bummer. It's okay. Bondo will probably end up making it just fine. they actually don't fit in that groove at the same time, which is unfortunate. Probably going to have to just clean out the groove. But basically it's like that is what it's supposed to end up as. Oh, that heat also gave me a bubble in my cutting table. That's not cool. I'm going to tear out a little bit more on the inside of this channel so I have a little more wiggle room. The tolerances are pretty tight, you know, which is good, but you don't have a lot of room for error. Man, that heat really mangled that surface. Can you see how smooth it is right here with the highlight? And then right there, look at all the different shapes. It just took the outer wall and really, really softened it. And so I can feel the support structure on the inside underneath it. Bondo will, you know, flatten it out, so it's not a huge deal. It'll still structurally there, but it's just a little surprising. I may end up having to sand down the inside edge here some to be able to get these to fit in there. Because they're really close, but the two tabs don't want to go in at the same time. Get in there. It's really close. All right, let's get some sanding blocks. Let's do it this way. I've got a piece of paper here that I put some sandpaper down on. A piece of paper. I've got a piece of wood here. I put some sandpaper down on so it's a nice flat surface to sand against. So another good advantage of sanding this edge, they will fit, but they'll also cut this line back a little bit, and so it will flatten it as it's making it fit. So, what was a learning moment? The heating the 3D printing thing? Oh yeah. All right, this is going to sound gross because I'm scratching a thing against another thing, but sorry. Ugh. It's pretty awful. You could use a belt sander for this too, but the problem there is that they run so fast that they will melt the plastic instead of sand it, and then you end up gumming up the paper and it just tears up the surface. And so you can do it, you just have to like be slow about it and just like barely sand, you know, and like let it cool. We can try that if you want, but it definitely will, it'll melt it and make a mess of it very, very quickly. What brand of plastic are you using? I'm using all this is all Matter Hackers PLA. So Matter Hackers is a really cool 3D printing company, and I worked out a deal with them where they're supplying the plastic for this project, which is really nice because it's a lot. And speaking of, if anybody is going to be in the Southern California area, I'm going to be working at Matter Hackers for about a week doing a project. We're working on something together, and I'll be out there later this month. But they're having a get-together it's like a 3D printing get together on February 22nd, and I've posted links to it and stuff. But you should definitely, if you're going to be in there, be in the area, come hang out. It'll be cool, and you'll get to see what we're working on. Do I know James Bruton? I do. He does a lot of stuff. Yeah, he does it all out of ABS, which is easier to heat shape. For sure, it's also harder to print. Not impossible. I just have had better luck printing with ABS. So, all right, I'm gonna try this, but just know what I'm doing is like barely sanding and barely sanding. Okay. I mean, even that right there, like melted some instead of. All right, just did a little bit on that. Also, I'm not really pushing down. I'm just kind of setting it on there. That helps not like gum it up too much. It's just barely sanding anything off. All right. Let's see if that helped at all. Still a pretty big gap in there, but I think it might still work. All right. Do they fit in at the same time? No, they don't. Still, they should. Well, kind of. Okay, that's a good thing. I have a feeling I may have to glue them in one at a time just to make them fit, because I can't really even hold them both at the same time. So that end, you can't really see that, but both of these pieces will slide into the groove down there, that groove right there. So that's cool. So let's just try it. Let's get some glue and some clamps and just go for it. Let's do it. All right. Gonna get some really tiny clamps. These little things are very small, but the springs are really strong, so. Okay, thank you, Red. Appreciate that. All right, so which one fit? The bottom edge fit? Is that right? Yeah. Actually, I think I'll glue one in. That'll probably be easier. I'll glue one in, and then also let me clamp in more places. All right, here we go. So, gonna add some glue, CA glue, fair amount down into this channel, and let it drip down onto both of the surfaces. And then I'm going to clamp that. All right. Hope this works. Not entirely convinced that it will, but because I think the gap in between them looks pretty consistent, but in the middle, I don't know. It's pretty cool though. It's actually starting to look like a thing. I've had all these pieces, and I haven't really assembled them too much. Actually, there's one thing that I haven't shown you yet. An assembled piece. And this is a whole different set of problems that I have yet to figure out. Excuse me. So this is the left shin piece. And this is 4 different pieces. This was on the Prusa. And they fit in, so they each have a little tab on that's on the inside that goes up, so they all kind of fit together and you can glue them in place. So these have been glued together. And when they're individual, they flex a fair amount. PLA is not particularly flexible. It cracks before it bends. And so each one of these I could get around my leg. I could open it up enough to get my leg in there. When I glued them all together, because of the compound curve now, it doesn't bend like it did before. So there's a strip that goes on the back. So there's like a little ledge here, and there's holes on the other side. The strip goes on the back like this, and it acts as a hook. So it attaches to one side and hooks around the other side. Problem with this is, though, even though it fits around my leg, I can't get my leg into it because I can't open it up enough to get my leg through there. The other complicating factor is that this armor piece goes on the front like that, which is going to make it even more rigid. Okay? And then there's a whole knee thing that goes on the top. So it's so hard to see. It's like all black, but so yeah, it goes there. And then there's like straps that go around the sides and all that stuff. So basically what I'm going to need to do is take this shape and cut it right down the center of the front, and on the inside of those pieces put in some sort of a bungee material, elastic, connecting the 2 pieces, so when they pull back together, they pull into this shape. That way I can spread it out with the elastic, slide it over my leg, and then let go, and it'll snap in. Now that front piece is going to have to be attached to one side and just to overlap the other side, so that'll be an interesting thing. So I think that'll work, but I haven't actually gotten to that. I'm going to have to, cut this down the middle and get everything attached. So anyway, but that's where I'm at with that. So it's kind of cool to see one piece fully, not completely printed. The only thing I don't have for it, there's these little buckles that go around somewhere down here. I don't know. They fit, I guess, right there. So there's these buckles that go around there, and they line up with the back thing right there. Now on the top, there's also a buckle that goes around here, but they don't have a file for that. So I think you're supposed to buy a material to make, because it's really thick. And so you make a piece that goes around. And then you have these 3D printed clasps that, attach like right there and stuff. So another fitting issue that I just have to figure out. Yeah. Cut the seam. It's supposed to be split in the back, the lip part that goes over the back. Oh yeah, I know that, but I have to split it in the front as well, so that the front will stretch to get my leg in, and the back will click in place to lock it, to hold those back pieces together. Because it's like one side has a little this, and the other side has a this, and they go. So. Okay, so this is probably dry. I think. It's pretty close. So we got that seam, that piece on there. Let's see how far off this one is from fitting. Oh, glue didn't take everywhere. That's a bummer. It took down here. Didn't take up there, so. Let me put a little bit on the outside of those joints too, just to hold them in place. My fingers have been so covered in super glue for the last 3 or 4 weeks. It's ridiculous. Okay, so let that dry. Do some activator on the outside part. That should help. And so if I can't get the seams to quite line up on the inside of this, I can also take a Dremel and shave off some of that inside edge that you won't see, and then I'll give the other one some more room. So, new prize for the top cheer. I looked into doing the leather, and I think we're going to stick with the wood for now because I'm trying to come up with a different design for the top cheer thing. I want to do the leather eventually, but I don't think it's quite there. Yeah. Could you put the same type of connection on the front as the back? You could, but that's modeled. That little clasp thing I was talking about, the overlay, is modeled into it. So I didn't modify the model. Maybe use the top band on the leg as a functional strap. Yeah, certainly could. You'd have to get the little clasp that I have on there is 3D printed, so it's not functional. So I'd have to get a matching actual clasp, which is possible, but. All right, so somebody asked about the activator. The activator doesn't affect the plastic at all. The glue activated is definitely shinier. You can see it right in that seam. Maybe if I can get it in the light. See how shiny it is right there. But, you just sand it down. That's the glue being shiny, not the activator. All right, so that should hold pretty well now. Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate that. 4 months in a row. Awesome. So I think the layer shift on the inside of this, one of these pieces, is one of the reasons that they're not lining up very well. Because it makes it bump out right in the middle. Oh man, it's pretty close though. It is really close. There's a little bump. I don't know that you can see it. It's like right in here. It's where the layer just shifted a hair, and so there's a little jut out there, and that's stopping these pieces from fitting in there super well. And I don't want to glue it until I'm sure that the piece will go in all the way. Right now it doesn't. Oh, get in there. Yeah. Oh, wait. Oh, I thought it snapped in. I can see it's just in that. Hey, thanks, Jeep guy. Yeah, it's really close. Like it wants badly to fit in there. There's this kind of center section. Won't quite go. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's in there. Like technically it's in there because I'm not even holding it and it's in there. It doesn't sit perfectly flush on this side like it does over here. So I don't know if maybe... PLA can also be kind of brittle. And so by trying to force two pieces together that don't fit, there's a good chance one of them will crack. I don't want that to happen. But I think... See, now I have to pop it out, which is good because that means it was really in there. I'm going to try to sand down this a little bit more, this both the face and the edge, and just see if that helps. Hey, Hubbard Tan Mays here. What's up, man? All right. So that worked out pretty well. It's still, even being careful, it still melts it a little bit and has like some kind of stuff on the edges that you gotta knock off. Yeah, it's pretty good though. Oh yeah, there we go. Still a little tight in the center there, but much closer for sure. Ah, get in there. It's weird. They look like they're different lengths. And I guess that's just... Hey, thanks, Caleb. I appreciate that. I guess that's just because of the heating. But, like, they're lined up here. But look at that. See how one's... Well, I don't know if you can see that or not. One's taller than the other. I can end up sanding that down and matching them. You know, just kind of flow between one and the other, but it is just a little weird. So the edges out here fit really well. They fit all the way in. It's the center section in here that doesn't quite want to fall down into the slot. And so I don't know. I'm not sure that I can really do anything about that, really. I guess I'll get the Dremel and see if I can just kind of sand out a little chunk. Oh yeah, here we go. So I'll use, got this grinding, sharpening stone. Now this is going to melt the plastic. So this Wouldn't work for like a bunch of area, but there's really just like one little notch that I'm trying to get rid of right here. So I'm just gonna, and it's small enough, the tip of this is small enough that it'll fit in there, so. Whoa! Ah! It chews through it really quickly if like it got kind of stuck in one spot there, because of the end of it just caught, and just made a quick little nick. Which doesn't matter because you can't see it, but it does matter because that hot plastic has to go somewhere. And in this case, it's filling up the channel that this piece needs to sit in, so that's not cool. I don't know. Not sure if that's actually any better or not, but. Come on. I think it needs some more sanding. Okay. There we go. It's much closer. Still not 100% down into it, but I think it's close enough. I mean, it's close enough that it stays in there now on its own. So it doesn't want to. Doesn't really want to bend. I think maybe heating that piece messed up like the. I know it messed up the surface, but I think maybe it messed up like the structure a little bit too. And so it's just not wanting to fit down in there all the way. It definitely locks in for parts of it. Okay. I think we're going to go with that. And just know that it's going to have some filling, you know. Maybe I could heat the back of it real softly and just kind of force it down in there. I don't know. I don't want to end up causing more problem, but it's fitting in the slot now, which is cool. All right, some glue on all the surfaces. I'm gonna start at the top, I guess. Push it in there. Ah, get in there. It just really... All right, low heat. Don't want to do too much there. Trying to get it to form a little bit better. It's just not wanting to do it. It's not bad. I mean, the seam there is like reasonable, right? So I'm gonna, and it's pretty consistent. So we're gonna do some filling and gluing here in 2 jobs in one. A lot there. I'm going to hit that with some kicker to make it grab. I'm also going to put a little bead on the inside that'll kind of hopefully seep down in between the 2 panels. Cool. Well, there's one. So we'll give this just a second, and hopefully it'll be good. When do you expect to have the full costume finished? I have no idea. Honestly, no idea. I got that bottle of glue. It's not really that big, but I get these from Amazon, and it's Stick Fast brand. I don't know. I think it might be like Rock or Woodcraft. I don't know if this is Woodcraft's brand or not, but it says Woodcraft on the bottle. But yeah. Are you going to be bondoing that area on the outside anyway? Yeah. Yeah, I'm not that worried about it. It's not. I mean, it's pretty close. The seam was really close after all that, so I think it's probably good. So that's what we got there, and that just goes like that. And it actually, you know, it feels... There is an affiliate link for that glue. I don't have it on me now, but every time I use that in any of my projects, I put a link with the affiliate in the description or on the website. So you can go to like any project pretty much, and you'll find it on there. Thanks for asking, Caleb. So that's that, and it's a little tight, honestly. I mean, there's not going to be a ton of motion in these anyway, I guess, but it's like so hard to see because it's black, but these guys, I don't know how they moved. I think it'll work. I mean, it's as long as it's Velcro up here and it's, you know, kind of like on the shirt and moves like that, I guess it'll work because it's not going to be locked in to where I can't move. It's going to be like attached in one point. So as long as I get that point in a good position. And then so this thing, this thing will go on there. So it's basically like that. It's tough when the pieces won't stay where they're supposed to at all. But essentially it's like that, I think. And then the panel goes on my hand. So I don't know. I don't have any clue when the full costume is going to be done. It just takes forever to print the pieces, and there's a huge amount of finishing work, and so yeah, I don't know. I wish I did. I would love to have it done for Celebration in April, but I can't imagine that that's realistic. It would be super cool, but I don't think it's realistic. All right, so I might try. I'm gonna see if the other one will go together maybe more easily. I don't know if it's the same. What time is it? 1:24. Goodness. We're gonna have to wrap it up pretty soon, guys. I gotta get some lunch, and then I got a meeting. So this one actually works. It looks like it works a little bit better. It's one of them is also has the layer shift, so that's just a thing. But this one looks like it goes together really well. So, there. I think these both need to be sanded down a little bit, like the other one, just to fit. It's really close, though. Come on, get in there. It actually might fit. All right, sand these down just a hair, and I think I'll glue the first one and just fit the second one, and worry more about sanding one of them to fit rather than both of them to fit. Hey, Sean. It's going pretty well. I'll post some pictures of the rifle. We finished the rifle, and it looks great. I'm really happy with it. All right, I went ahead and went a little bit harder on this one, and so there's more like melted stuff hanging off, but I'm just gonna try to knock it off. Okay. It definitely fits easier on the bottom, that's for sure. They both get in there. That's pretty awesome. Hey, Geeksmithing, have you done anything with that lathe yet? Okay. So this one should fit a little bit easier now. Oh man, it's really close. I think part of it is this kind of track that it's supposed to go into had some support material in it, so it's not perfectly flat. All right. I'm going to go ahead and glue this one like I did the last one. Just figure it out as we go along. The curve makes it interesting to try to clamp because they want to pull, different parts of it want to pull in different directions. It's like in the center part of the curve. I'm not entirely sure that it's pushed all the way to the outer edge. You can't see it, so just gotta hope that it is. And the remaining gap looks pretty even, so hopefully it's out there, but you know, who knows. All right, so gonna put another little seam. Can't get a very thin bead of this stuff out of this container because the opening has been trashed so many times that it's just kind of hard to get anything fine out of it. All right. All right. So hopefully next week I'll have the legs completely printed and we can work on that. Yeah, man, it is time for lunch. I totally agree with you. I want to get this last piece put together and call it a day. Oh, mail's here. I can hear the guy getting out of his truck to bring me a package. Not quite grabbed, but oh, it almost goes in there. Oh, it did. It snapped in. Sweet. Okay. Well, that's a good thing. One went in easier than the last one, so let's put some glue. Get in there. Ah. It did work. You saw it, right? Of course it doesn't work now that the glue is waiting and starting to set. Oh man, come on. Not cool, man. Not cool. Get in there. Is that gonna pull it in? Dude. Alright, so I got the bottom in. What in the world? I cannot get it to pop in there. You can squeeze it in, even if it cracks the plastic a little bit. But it's in there. It matches up on the outside, so that's cool. Starting to run out of kicker. Alright, another little glue seam down the middle to hold these pieces together. Like I said, I think I'll eventually go back and cover this, the inside seams at least, with some 5-minute epoxy to just build up a layer of something that crosses them. Just to give them some more strength. Okay, so shoulder bells are done. That's pretty cool. All right. We're done with that. So, who's the cheerleader for today? Let me know. Let's go in and laser some stuff.